Hello, welcome everybody to the Wednesday, August 30th meeting of Kubernetes SIG Service Catalog. I'm going to turn it over to Aaron since he's elected to join us today. And maybe if we have a volunteer to take notes or to share their screen with the agenda, that would be fantastic. If not, I will share my screen, but I suck at taking notes even when I'm not talking.
Yeah, so can everybody hear me? Can anybody not hear me? Cool. All right, yeah, I'm going to take notes today. George couldn't be with us. So I need just a volunteer to share their screen. That'd be great. As usual, well, first of all, thanks to everyone for running the meeting yesterday in my absence. I appreciate that. I'm going to do the speaker queue again with my new and improved high-tech speaker queue technology. So just again, as you guys all know, if you have something you want to say, just put, what did we used to do? Plus Q or something like that. Oh, plus hand, excuse me. Put plus hand in the chat, and we'll add you to the end of the speaker queue. So with that, can anybody share their screen? Just share. I will take notes. Anybody going once? Don't all raise your hands at once.
Yeah, I'll share my screen. I have to clear off some.
All right, cool. Gracias.
Okay, do you see my screen?
We can.
All right.
For that. All right, so let's get started. I moved, Doug, I moved your item to the top. I'm hoping and I suspect that it's going to be a short one, so go ahead and take the floor.
Yeah, I just want to know if there was any objection to creating a release tonight. I think we usually do it on Wednesdays anyway. I just want to double check and make sure no one objected to it. I was going to do it later tonight, if everybody's okay with it.
I think that we should, yeah.
Okie dokie, easy.
Anybody have objections? Going once? Cool, let's do it. So Doug, I'll put a little action item for you. All right, Stabler, I believe your first name is Mike. I apologize if I got that wrong.
You got it wrong.
Did I?
Matthew.
Matthew, I am sorry. Matthew Stabler, please take the floor, and I apologize profusely. Go ahead.
Yeah, don't sweat that. So I have a proposal for defining limits of work, where currently the controller doesn't behave very well in the presence of communication errors with the broker, as far as just stopping retries. Because of the way that relists happen from the API server. So right now, retry information is all stored in the worker queue in the controller, and when relists come in, or if the controller restarts, then all that information is lost. So the proposal is to move information about when to stop retrying requests to the status of the resource rather than having that in the worker queue. And in conjunction with that, when the retry timeout is exceeded, then the controller will go in and set the condition for that resource to be failed.
I'm just going to finish up the notes here. All right. Yeah, so can you just go in the notes, make sure I got that right? I was kind of writing and listening at the same time, so I wanted to make sure. Doug, you've got a hand up, so go ahead.
Yeah, that everything sounds fine. I'm assuming that upon marking the resources being in a failed state, you're also going to undo whatever mechanism we decide on that blocks concurrent updates or blocks further updates. So, for example, in Paul's proposal, he had the presence of an operation string being set as the flag. You'll clear that out, or if we decide to do something else, you'll undo whatever we did to block concurrent updates, I assume, right?
Matt, you've got a hand up anyway, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think maybe Paul can address that in the next proposal. That seems reasonable to clear out the current operation. I do know that one thing we would do would be to set the, I think we agreed to set the reconciled generation at that point.
Right. Either way, whatever the mechanism is, just make sure that we undo it when the thing gets into the failed state.
Cool. Paul, go ahead. You've got the floor.
Yeah, I agree. When you stop doing work, I think you have to do the following things. You have to update the reconciled generation with the current generation. I think you also have to set the failure condition like we're doing now for if the broker says, hey, this failed, I think you should set that same condition. And I had actually forgotten when I wrote up the other thing that we talked about, the blocking behavior being based on reconciled generation and current generation not being the same. So I think we're in agreement there then.
All right. So I hear consensus. I don't think I have 100% of it, but here's at least part of it. I think that we do need to eventually quit when the broker says there is a termination condition. We need to set a new status accordingly. We need to update the reconciled generation accordingly. And that's all I know of. So what am I missing here?
I just made some notes that I think the list is update the reconciled generation, set the failure condition, set the ready condition correctly.
Okay. Are we missing anything else from people? Anybody? All right. So Paul, I'm going to take what you've written here and I'm going to transform this into a consensus. All right, so let me read out loud here. Consensus, we are going to have the controller quit doing work after a broker responds with a failure that represents a termination condition. When that happens, we're going to update the reconciled condition, set the failure condition appropriately, and finally set the ready condition appropriately. Does anybody disagree with anything in there? Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I think it's also when we just time out due to communication errors, not necessarily that the broker responded with the failure.
Yeah, I think that's how we understood this to mean. So whether it's because the thing failed or it succeeded or we stopped doing work, we should do the right thing on the status.
Okay. So is what I wrote here accurate to the best of you guys' knowledge?
It looks right to me.
Okay. All right. Before we move on to the next item, any final questions, concerns, comments, so forth? Going once. All right, let's move on. Paul, take the floor with your blocking updates proposal. Go ahead.
Okay, I will open up the link. And Morgan, sometimes okay, so different video conference things have different automatic gain control facilities, and very rarely can you turn them off. So sometimes mine will get jacked up by something I can't control. Anyway, so we agreed in the face-to-face.
Hey, Paul, could you increase the font?
Yeah.
Maybe a couple pixels. Cool.
So we had agreed in the face-to-face that in order to deal with this problem of, say that you're doing an async operation and someone can come in and update the spec while you're doing it, it will be much simpler if we block updates while the controller is doing work for a resource. So here's the proposal that I came up to add specifics about what that would look like. And basically, for service instance and service instance credential, we'll have a new field in the status that is the current operation that the controller is doing. So when the controller decides, hey, I need to, as an example, I need to do a provision, the controller, before it does that, should set this field in the status. And if, when you do that, the field fails due to a conflict, is what I wrote, and I realize now this isn't necessary due to some things that I'd forgotten. The controller should error, and that'll cause it to retry. Actually, I think that is still applicable because you could error due to a conflict because somebody went and annotated or labeled the resource that you were working on. So it should unset this field when it finishes doing work on the resource. And there should be an emission controller that rejects update to the spec of service instance or service instance credential. I had written here when the current operation status field is set. Doug is correct, though, that we had talked about this being the blocking while the current generation doesn't match the reconciled generation, blocking updates to the spec. I think that is just as good of a criteria. I do think that if the current operation, I'm sorry. So when you update the reconciled generation to match the current generation, what you should do is also unset the current operation, because it means you're done doing work. And then I have some write-up of this to illustrate what I'm talking about, where for service instance status, we're going to add current operation. It's typed as service instance operation, and it can take on the values provision, update, and deprovision. Same idea for service instance status, or I'm sorry, service instance credential status, except that it can take on values bind and unbind, and we can add update in there later on when we support, when updates to bindings are in the API and when we support them. And that is pretty much it.
Cool. Any comments, questions about the proposal? I will put my hand up then and act myself. So Paul, I was a little confused about the relationship between the current operation fields and the generation fields. Can you clarify?
So generation is what version of the spec So metadata generation is what version of the spec am I now? Reconcile generation is what version of the spec have I finished doing work for? And current operation is what type of work am I doing?
Okay, got it. Anybody else? Cool. Okay. So it sounds like I see Morgan says I need to read it. It sounds like we should have an action item here for everybody to go read this, and we come back at the next design meeting to get consensus on this. Is there any objection to that?
That's fine with me. Let's try to get consensus on this tomorrow because time is running out.
All right. We're going to make that an action item then. All right, we're all going to go read this. We're going to come back at the next meeting, which will be tomorrow, and we're going to get consensus on this so that we can move forward with implementing it. Cool. Anybody else have comments, questions on this proposal? Going once? All right, cool. I have a last item. This is very short. I'm looking for someone who has experience in aggregated API authentication to give me maybe a 15 to 20 minute consult. So if anyone has time to volunteer for that, preferably today, even more preferably right after this meeting, I'd love for you to just DM me on the Slack, on the Kubernetes Slack. And that's pretty much it from me, from my point.
Okay, I can help you with that if no one else steps up, but I have other things I need to write up after the face-to-face, so if anybody else can do it, I would appreciate it.
Okay, I'll reach out on the Slack channel. And other than that, that's the end of my point. So we are out of items on the agenda. Does anybody have anything last minute they want to bring up before we end this meeting?
So let's meet tomorrow, and I should have at least one other follow-up from the face-to-face written up more explicitly.
Okay, I will I will bring your proposal, Paul, I will bring your proposal onto tomorrow's agenda. We'll have the agenda set, and then anyone can go and start adding stuff. Morgan, you have a caret and in the chat. Is that something you want to bring up?
No, I just the 10/11/06, I think is what it's called, is just the split plan stuff. All the actual work is done, I think, and I'd like to get that in before we need to rebase it.
So Morgan, I read through that last night, and it looked like there were a couple parts of tests that had been commented out. Like it looked like
right, and that's what I was fixing this morning.
Oh, so. Okay. So those are done now, and I can go back over it.
I've got a commit I need to push. That's all.
Okay. All right. Just say something in the SIG chat when you've done that.
Yep. Sure.
All right.
Cool. Doug, you got a hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Morgan, do you think you're going to get that done tonight? Because if you are, I'll hold off creating the release until you're done. Otherwise, I won't wait for you. Just which way do you think you're going to go with that?
I'm troubleshooting why names and strings don't equal each other right now. So, I mean, I'd like to have it done. I don't think anything is majorly broken in that I think the tests that are missing are the sort of stuff that was checking that service plan equals service plan. So I don't think any of that's actually broken, given that all the other stuff still works, but it's hard to know.
Okay, maybe I'll ping you later, see how things are going. If possible, I'd like to get your thing in there if you think it's going to get merged tonight. Otherwise, I guess I can wait for next week. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, thank you.
I put a hand up. I would say, Doug, just set a time, set a deadline time, and then whatever's in, just release with that.
All right, Morgan, you got till 10 p.m. Eastern. TikTok, baby.
What is that? That's like what is Eastern? I don't even remember Eastern anymore.
Oh gosh, 7 p.m. your time. Jeez, what a loser.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
next week. The
You
beauty
West
of-
Coast guys think the world revolves around you. I know that.
Harsh words from a blind man.
All right.
No.
All right, y'all. Anything else? Last chance? Going once? All right, we're going to get a little bit over 30 minutes back on the day. I will talk to everyone on the internet, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
All right. See you, everybody.
Take care, everybody.